Comeback thwarted. The Mariners' win streak unfortunately ends at 8 games despite a ninth inning rally to take the lead. Let's talk about it here on the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Thank you so much for making us your first listen after the game. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. 5-4, the final score from Guaranteed Rate Field, and not in favor of the good guys. Mariners, unfortunately, see their 8-game win streak come to an end despite a 3-run top of the ninth to take the lead. Andres Munoz blows it in the bottom of the ninth. Mariners don't score in the top of the 10th, and the White Sox walk it off on one of the dumbest plays you'll ever see. Fitting, though, because this was a really dumb game. Colby, I'd say we lost to a helmet, but that obviously wasn't the only reason the Mariners found themselves on the wrong side of this one. Your thoughts after the game?
I think we could say 3 things that all sound contradictory, but are all very true.
Okay.
A, this team really misses Paul Sewald. B, this team really needed Josh Rojas today, and really for the last few days, to extend their win streak. And he has been quite good since his first 3 games or so in Seattle. And the third thing is that Andres just has to do the job. Like, at the end of the day, we talk about like, oh, well, they wish they had Paul, and I do, or, hey, I wish they'd gone to Brash in the 9th instead, and I wish they did. But at the end of the day, Andres Munoz is, a major league pitcher who was given a 1-run lead, and he blew it. So I think, all 3 of those things can be true. Yeah, you miss Paul. That's the guy you want in that spot, or that's the guy you did want until July 20, whatever. The trade has worked out, fairly well in terms of value for the Mariners on the field. And also, we shouldn't be talking about the trade because Andres just has to do the job. Just do your job. Get 3 outs. And he couldn't do it. Unfortunately, the slider today, once again, he just does not have any command of that pitch, and he has no confidence in it. We're kind of piling on Andres. I just figured we'd start here, but plenty of blame to go around for this loss. But Munoz right now, the slider is just kind of spinning in the middle of the plate, or he's missing badly with it. The White Sox didn't put either of his fastballs in play today.
Yeah,
couldn't touch it. Yeah. Munoz had 4 whiffs on 6 swings of his 4-seamer. So yeah, he had 3 called strikes on 5 sinkers. The other 2 were balls. So they had no chance against the heater and all that stuff. That's the slider that's really killing Andres right now, and he probably needs to make that adjustment. He needs to go be fastball heavy for a little bit until he can make that adjustment. But he got ahead of both guys in the 9th. I think it was an 0-2 count and a 1-2 count, and then he hung sliders to both of them.
Yep.
And that at that point, you're not feeling great. And then obviously, bases loaded, 2 outs, and we see an at-bat from Julio that we have seen quite a bit, not recently, but that we have seen quite a bit in the first half of this year. And it's just kind of a bummer because there were a lot of other opportunities. Kopech wasn't good at all today, and you could only muster 1 hit against him. That White Sox bullpen is a dumpster fire, and you couldn't score off of it until the 9th. And it just, it was either a bad game plan going into today's game, or it was a bad, just bad execution. But any way you want to slice it, there were a lot of things that contributed to today's loss. And, it's easy to point at Munoz. It's easy to point at the JP throw as the biggest, but there were a lot of reasons. The Mariners, they just didn't play well. I mean, let's just call it what it is. The Mariners didn't play well today, and they kind of got what they deserved for their effort.
Yeah, they've played 13 games in a row. Kind of feels like maybe they were running out of gas a little bit here. I mean, they've been playing some incredible baseball. You're bound to have a game like this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it happens. Like, I'm just gonna, ultimately just gonna chalk it up to the nature of baseball. And I would obviously be a lot more upset by this game had the Mariners not gone 8-2 overall on this road trip. So not gonna lay into them too much. But yeah,
No.
you're not gonna win many baseball games when you leave 14 men on base, when you go 4 for 18 with runners in scoring position. That's just, you're not going to find a lot of success doing that. And really the only reason that you were still in this game and still had a chance to win this game is because the White Sox are really bad. And they tried desperately to give you this game back. And it seemed like they were going to take advantage of this. But yeah, just a rough outing from Andres Munoz, who just does not look like he trusts his slider right now. He overall just looked really uncomfortable on the mound. Maybe some of that is just the heat. It was apparently 99 degrees on the south side of Chicago. Felt like 110 on the field, according to Brian Debish. But yeah, we'll talk in a few here about the Mariners' ninth inning situation, and just Andres Munoz, the closing situation, I guess, more specifically. And just what to do about that, because Munoz has been really shaky for a while now. But yeah, it's still, to me, this really comes down to the Mariners just messing around too much for most of the course of this game, and not really taking advantage of Kopech when he was really wild, where he had no command whatsoever, where he nearly hit Teoscar Hernandez 3 times before walking him. Pitching coach came out, talked to him. It seemed like it calmed him down a little bit, but I felt like the Mariners still bailed him out there, and Ty France ends up hitting into a inning-ending double play. He had a really rough game today at the plate. Also had a big strikeout with runners on the corners, less than 2 outs as well, later on in the game. And I also thought this was kind of a weird managed game from Scott Service. I know that he was, it's a getaway day. He's trying to keep guys rested if possible, like especially Cal Raleigh, but he ends up using Raleigh in the 9th anyway, ends up pinch hitting him in the 9th anyway for Brian O'Keefe. But he had an opportunity to do that in the 7th inning, I believe, 6th inning. I think it was the 7th inning, where there were runners on the corners and less than 2 outs again. And O'Keefe ended up striking out in that spot. And that was an opportunity to get specifically left-handed Cal Raleigh into the game. And I feel like with the way that he's been hitting from that side of the plate, that would have gone a bit differently. But I don't want to result too much. Obviously, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But I just thought that was kind of a weird game from Scott as well.
Yeah, the process wasn't good, because who ended up getting 2 of the highest leverage at bats in this entire game? Mike Ford, your worst hitter by far. It's not close. He's your worst hitter, and then because of that, right? Ford ends up being the extra runner on second, the free run, whatever they call it, in extra innings, and he's unable to score on the bloop single.
Yeah.
Which I don't think that everybody on this team scores on that, but
no,
certainly Haggerty does. So it's one of those things. Again, I don't know why Mike Ford is on this roster. I don't like it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I do like it. He could have hit the 3-run homer there to tie the game or to win the game, and I still wouldn't like it, because I think that's bad process. So it's not about results, it's about process. I think that's a poor process. I think if you're trying to give Cal the entire day off, you just give him the day off. But to not use him in the 7th when you were willing to use him in the 9th, I don't know. Like, what's the point of that? And like you said, we'll talk about this in a minute, but I also don't like the decision to go to Munoz when you haven't used Brash yet. Right. I could understand it if you had already used Brash, but Brash hasn't pitched in 3 days. Like, you need a strikeout. That's the guy. So it is what it is. You put out a mediocre effort today. You got a bad result, and that's how it goes. And if you put up mediocre efforts against Houston and Texas and Tampa and the Dodgers and all these teams you have coming up here, the next few weeks, if you put up that kind of effort against those teams, they're going to run right through you. So, don't let it snowball. 8-2 is still a great road trip. It's much better than we ever thought was reasonable. And it's kind of funny, you lose the first game of the road trip, you lose the last game of the road trip, and it kind of just sour notes the whole thing, even though you ran off 8 in a row. But just because they've won 21 of 27 doesn't mean that they're above. It doesn't mean that they're
above reproach.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that they can't be critiqued and criticized. So, overall, it's not a huge deal. But these games do matter because it's going to come down to 1 or 2 games at the end of it, and you don't want to just kick games that you should win, and this is one that the Mariners should have won.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, they're still in a really good spot right now. They're going to finish the day, 1.5 games back of first place in the American League West, no matter what happens in the Astros-Red Sox game tonight. So, yeah, so still, feeling good about this team. And then Friday, they'll get back after it against the Kansas City Royals at T-Mobile Park. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully a little bit less stressful with it being at T-Mo instead of Kauffman, but we'll see. You can catch all the action during that series on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All right, let's talk more about Munoz and the closer situation for the Mariners in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. And that's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head on over to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners postgame show. Thank you again for making us your first listen after the Mariners 5-4 loss to the Chicago White Sox. You can catch the Mariners and the Royals starting on Friday and over the course of the weekend on the Mariners hometown broadcast of SiriusXM via the SXM app as they look to begin a new win streak. The first team since 1980 to win 8 games in a row twice in the same calendar month. Yeah. Seems like they don't want to win 9 games in a row, though. Seems like they're allergic to 9-game winning streaks, but whatever. All right, so yeah, again, Andres Munoz, the one that blows it in the bottom of the ninth, had a 4-3 lead, ends up giving up a leadoff double to Oscar Colas, and then the game tying double to Andrew Benintendi, where he hung a slider in the bottom third of the plate, middle bottom third of the plate. Just another example of him really struggling with that pitch as of late. And generally speaking, he just doesn't look super confident on the mound right now. So what do you think's going on with Andres?
Yeah, it's tough to say. Velocity's also been a little bit down. It sounds ridiculous to say that about a guy who's throwing 98 pretty consistently right now, but we haven't seen too many hundreds from Andres in the last few outings. We did see it once today, but he's really throwing that 2-seamer a lot more than he usually is. I think it's just, I think it's mechanical more than anything. There's something that's off about his release or there's just something that's a little bit off about the arm action or something, because the slider, he's usually pretty much his entire career been very good at burying that pitch or having it run off the inside corner and jamming lefties. Like that's or getting chases from righties. He's always been able to control that pitch better than he has right now. And I mean, I guess the fair part is he's throwing the slider for strikes, but if it's not a good strike, then that's just a pitch that's begging to be hit. So yeah, I think it's a mechanical thing. And I think they haven't quite figured out what it is yet. And that leads to a confidence thing. If you don't feel good about throwing your best pitch, it's probably not going to be a very effective outing for you. So I just, I think it's a mechanical thing and a confidence thing right now. And I think once he figures out the mechanical thing, the confidence in the pitch will come back, but he does not have it right now. He is trying to survive on the fastball, and I think he could for a little while. But I do think eventually he'll have to find that slider. I just don't have a lot of faith that he's going to find it anytime soon, because this is, it's his last 10 outings, 4, 5, 6 of them have been pretty dicey, to say the least.
Yeah. And I'm sure Service is still going to use him in these high leverage spots, but I don't think that you should really force that on him right now while he's still trying to find himself. We'll see, but I don't feel great about using him in spots like today. in 1-run games like today for the time being until he finds himself. So what do you do in the meantime, though? Is it Brash? Is it Topa? Is it Gabe Spire? Like, who would you rather see get these opportunities that Andres has been getting the last little while here?
I trust all three of those guys more than I do Andres right now.
Yeah.
The problem is that typically you need to use, 2 or 3 of those guys to get to the ninth. And as weird as it is to say, the ninth inning in a 1-run game doesn't automatically equal the highest leverage spot in the game, and that's where you want to use Brash. So sometimes, the ninth inning with a 1-run lead against, 7, 8, 9, it's a high leverage spot because it's the ninth inning. It's a 1-run game, but that is not the same as, the 7th inning with runners on second and third and 1 out and Luis Robert is coming up to the plate. That is a higher leverage spot. And that's where you want to use Brash. And if that was the case today, then I think it makes total sense to go to Andres, but it wasn't. Brash hasn't pitched in 3 days. You didn't need him for that situation, which means he was available to pitch the ninth. And in the ninth, I'm looking for somebody who can, avoid contact for the most part. And right now, I just don't trust Andres to do that because he only has, 1 pitch. I mean, technically 2, the 4-seam and the 2-seam, but it's a fastball. And that's what he has. And he has to throw the slider, and he does not have it right now. So, yeah, I think in general, Andres is probably the right guy to go to because it's highly unlikely that you're going to have a situation where Topa, Spire, and Brash are available for the ninth. But today was one of those days where you could have used any of them for the ninth, and you didn't. So I don't know. I think you keep going to it. And, again, there are going to be situations where, yeah, Munoz is just the guy who makes the most sense, even though you're not feeling great about it. Yeah. But today wasn't one of those days. Not for me.
Yeah, so we'll see how they handle it here in the next few days. But yeah, not super concerned about Andres long term, but right now just don't trust him a ton. And I don't know if I really want him to try and figure things out while trying to win games for you. So if you can find opportunities for him to get into these games in low leverage situations where it makes sense, that's what my preference would be right now. And then just go Brash, Spire. I know Saucedo hasn't looked particularly great last couple of outings, but Saucedo as well. Any of those guys, let them handle that for now in the meantime.
Or Luke Weaver.
Or Luke Weaver, which is a great segue to what I wanted to talk to you about next. Luke Weaver is one of your guys, right? He's another Jake Bowers. He's another I don't know. Name a guy that you like. He's another
Keon
one of
Broxton,
those guys.
Drew Smiley.
Yeah, Drew Smiley. Yep, all those guys.
Yeah.
So he signed a major league contract with the Mariners yesterday, just kind of at random, just got announced by the team. I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. But obviously he was added to the Mariners 40-man roster during the offseason, ended up getting DFA'd, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they clearly like him. They clearly see something there that they've identified that they think they can get more out of. And today we saw him throwing his cutter a bit more than he has in the past. And he struck out the first 5 batters he saw, which includes Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez. Quick little 6 up, 6 down for him over 2 innings of work. He was looking great against this White Sox lineup, just shredded through them. So what did you see out of Luke Weaver?
What I always knew was there. It's really easy to identify these guys, and I'm a little miffed at Andres for ruining my coming out party for the 2nd year in a row. Both of them in August, I think on this date, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty close to this date, at least.
I'm gonna look that up. Yeah.
Last year, my Jake Bauer or my
Jake Lamb
celebration party was ruined by Andres against Cleveland, and today my Luke Weaver chest pounding was ruined by Andres in Chicago. I'm gonna say it was on the 25th last year, but yeah, Weaver is he has.
It was the 27th, so 4 days off.
So thanks, Andres. No, what's pretty interesting about the Mariners is, and Weaver in particular, is that Weaver actually has some pretty good stuff. He just wasn't throwing it as much as he was his worst pitches. And one of the things the Mariners have figured out is that sometimes you just ask a pitcher to throw his best pitches more often and you get better results. Shocking, I know, but that's what the Mariners, do. And sometimes it's, a little more complicated than that, but sometimes it's hey, Paul Sewald, like, your fastball plays really well at the top of the zone. Throw it there. Forget what the Mets told you about getting it down and keep getting ground balls. Throw it at the top. That's where you get the good stuff. And for Weaver, his best pitch, his best pitch, at least from a scouting standpoint, is the cutter. He just doesn't throw it a ton. Well, today he threw 38% cutters, 10 of them in 26 pitches. He got 2 whiffs on 4 swings, 5 called strikes, 10 cutters, 4 swings, 2 whiffs, 5 called strikes, 2 foul balls. 1 cutter was not called a strike. Was not a strike. He backed it up with a fastball that was 94 to 96, topped out at 95.8. The changeup was maybe my favorite pitch. He threw a couple really good changeups in this outing.
Yep.
And when you just add it up, 16 swings with 9 whiffs plus 5 called strikes, 54% called strike plus whiff. Sometimes you have to make a mechanical change. Sometimes you have to teach a new pitch. Sometimes it's as simple as, hey, those pitches that you throw well, that you get good results on, throw those more and don't throw the pitches that are not getting good results.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what's happening with Luke here. I doubt that they were able to make any change other than that so quickly, because the Mariners are good, but they're not that good. But Luke Weaver might be. There was 1 ball put in play on Luke Weaver today, 55 miles an hour exit velo.
Yeah. Little dribbler right to him.
Yep. So, I mean, it's as dominant of a debut that I can remember, probably. And I know you're going to say the first inning Kendall Graveman start against Houston, but that only lasted 1 inning. Luke went 2. So
that's a good point. That is a fair point. But first inning Kendall Graveman in 2020 was,
when he was popping 100.
He was special. And the empty stadium too, where you could really hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. But Luke was sensational today. His spin rates were up today from previous norms. So I mean, slightly. It's one outing. So
yeah,
you don't want to sit here and be like, Luke Weaver's the next Paul Sewald. That's my job. And because I was first on Luke Weaver,
right?
I'm taking credit for this. So you're welcome. Okay. Andres, you're on my list now because you have ruined 2 huge opportunities for me to come on the show and pound my chest in the last calendar year. So thanks for nothing, but hey, Luke Weaver looks good, and we'll see what their plan is with him too. He's been starting all year. The Mariners wanted to do the 6-man rotation. Hancock's out for the year now. Do they try and do that still? Is Weaver a part of that, or is he just a bullpen guy? But yeah, it was a heck of an outing from Weaver, and he has easily put forth the best effort of any of the Mariners in today's game.
If you're watching on YouTube, if you're in the comments right now, say it with me, folks. Chills. Dipoto.
Colby did it again.
Again. No.
Where do you think Jerry got this idea?
Definitely not from you.
Definitely
he doesn't listen to you.
Me.
He listens to me.
No,
he doesn't listen to you.
He pities you, which is why he gave you that dumb gif.
He traded for Teo, for me, personally.
And which one's worked out better so far, Ty? Who had the better game today? That's what I thought. Sit down and you know the rest of it.
Yeah. Thank you for keeping it clean. Thank you. Teo had a 2-hit day today.
Yeah, but
did
he strike out 5 out of 6? Give them a real shot to win this game? No, he didn't. And maybe if he doesn't, bobble a single down into the corner, George Kirby only gives up 2 and you win that game 4-2. Did you ever think of that, Ty? That's what I thought.
You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for bringing us your first listen after the Mariners 5-4 loss to the Chicago White Sox. Before we got on the show, Colby, you said that you have a take. And you said, ask me how George Kirby looked today. So I'm going to ask you, Colby, how did George Kirby look today?
Not great.
That's your take? That was your take?
I mean, yeah, I wanted you to hype me up and then,
Mm,
just dunk it on you, but
mm.
he was okay. He had a couple innings where things kind of got away from him, the pitch count wise, but he was fine. Like the pitch that he gives up the 2-run homer, which is a huge pitch. It wasn't a terrible pitch. It was a slider, it was on the outside corner. It was probably thigh high when he wanted it below the knees or a little bit more off the corner, but not an awful pitch. It was just kind of a meh day. It was very fastball slider heavy. The slider did get good results, 41% whiff rate on the slider. But he
He
did
threw
not get
some
it.
bad sliders today, though.
He did.
threw,
He did.
yeah.
So he threw a couple cement mixers up there. He missed his spots a few times, and 5 2/3, 3 runs, 2 of which come on kind of a not a bad pitch, but a 2-run homer, and the other one is set up by Teoscar fumbling around for a single in the corner. It was fine. Like, I don't want to say George was terrible today, but he wasn't as good as some people are hyping him up to be. 9 strikeouts and 5 2/3 is great, but he also gave up 8 hits. We saw him kind of leave a lot of pitches in the middle of the plate that didn't get hit hard. Like, it was just kind of I would call it a 50 grade outing from Kirby. I know there are going to be a lot of people out there like, what are you talking about? He struck out 9 and 5 2/3, and he gave up 3,
Yeah.
but and then make excuses for the 3 he gave up. But George was only okay today. And, it's,
Well, and you mentioned 5 2/3. He threw 100 pitches during that time. Like, was kind of the problem today. Was he just like, he did get the strikeouts, but he wasn't able to put these guys away in a timely manner. He really, really struggled to get some outs today. And so that's now the second start in a row. Obviously, this isn't a long-term issue that I'm concerned about, but this is the second start in a row where he has struggled to put away guys rather quickly. So, and the pitch count goes up because of that. And again, we've talked about this, right? He's elite command with, not elite stuff, right? That's pretty fair to say about
it's
George Kirby.
55 stuff
Yeah,
on the 20/80 scale, which is
yeah,
above average.
and sometimes it plays up more than that.
Sometimes it's 60. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, this was just kind of an example of that, where it's just like he didn't have really a consistent out pitch where he was able to put these guys away a bit earlier than he did. But the numbers overall look really good. So he did enough to give his team a chance to win. He battled,
Sure.
but yeah, would have liked to see a little bit of a better outing from him. But
Right.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I think part of that too is you look at the first 2 outings in the series. They were better than George. Obviously, Castillo dominated, and Wu, even though he struggled in the first, really settled in. He only went 4, but he looked just dominant after the first inning. And Kirby never really looked dominant after the first inning. He looked good, but he never really dominated. So part of this is, you're a victim of your own success. Like, maybe our expectations for George have raised significantly. But
I guess maybe I just I hold George to a higher standard.
Maybe, but
and I'm being unfair.
5 2/3, 8 hits against this lineup.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great.
All right, it's not terrible. 3 runs, 8 hits against this lineup is.
It's fine.
It's kind of what I would expect from Brian Wu.
You didn't lose because of George Kirby today.
No,
like that wasn't the one of the many reasons you ended up losing today. It was still the offense messing around, not taking advantage of Kopech. That's really what the issue was. And then obviously, Munoz and not being able to score in the 10th, all that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But the Mariners gave up 10 hits today. 8 by George, 2 by Andres, 0 by everybody else. So
yeah.
Just one of those days, it's a bummer, but just they didn't play well enough. At the end of the day, that's all it is. It's very simple. Sometimes it's a very simple game. You play poorly, you lose, even to bad teams.
Yeah.
That's the story for August 23rd. They didn't play well.
Happens.
It happens.
ball this game up, throw it in the trash, move on. We're on to Kansas City. All right, to real quick before we get out of here, just to let you guys know what's going on for the next couple days here on the show. Obviously, we got 2 more shows before the Mariners play their next game on Friday night against the Royals. Again, you can catch that matchup on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. We are going to be doing our first post-draft, post-deadline ranking of the Mariners farm system. So we're going to be doing numbers 30 through 16 on tomorrow's show, and then numbers 15 through 1 on Friday's show. I think that's what we're doing. Or did you want to do 30 through 11 tomorrow and then the top 10 on Friday?
We'll surprise you guys.
Yeah, we'll let you guys know. This is us
Couple wild and crazy dudes, you know.
Wild card. Yeah. So that's what's going on. And then Colby's going to be out of town this weekend for his home fantasy football draft. So he's going to be doing that, having a good time.
You're number 12.
Yep. And
defending champion of that league.
There you go.
Colby. It will be out of town.
There you go. Do you have a trophy?
I do. Not here, but I do.
All right. You gotta show it on screen.
It is in my other. It is in the office of the new studio that I don't record from.
The new studio that
no longer makes sense to record from. Yes,
existed for like 2 days and then you moved on from it. Yeah.
Well, you know why?
Yeah. But yeah, so with Colby out of town, if the Mariners do win on the weekend, still planning to do post game, at least one post game. And we're gonna have Ben Ranieri of the Sea Level Substack coming on here to supplement the absence of one Mr. Colby Patnode. And yeah, we're gonna be talking some ball. And Ben's dope. And Ben came on here once after the Luis Castillo extension. What's up?
Just Boob Nightingale doing his thing.
Oh, Boob. What did Boob do?
The Seattle Mariners have won 16 of their last 20 games. They lost 1 game in the bottom of the 9th and 3 in extras, including today's blown save. They traded their closer, Paul Sewald, July 31st to Arizona. And you guys think I'm bad?
Yeah. And you think we relitigate the deadline too much? Come on, Boob. Do better.
Idiot.
Yeah, moron. Yeah, Bob Nightingale's a jabroni. Anyway, yeah, so we'll have Ben on here for any post games that we might do over the weekend. I think you guys will like Ben. Super knowledgeable guy. Give him a follow over at Ben Ranieri 10. That's BenRanieri 10 on Twitter, and check out his Substack, Sea Level on Substack. All right. That's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners postgame show. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. It's DANEGNZLZ. And Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well over at Locked On Mariners. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen after the game. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Royals starting Friday night and over the course of the weekend on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.